Hello, my name is Joel Coleman. I'm a sales engineer with Symantec. And in this video, I'm going to be covering what's new in Symantec Endpoint Protection 14. That's our latest version of our Symantec Endpoint Protection solution. And this video is primarily targeted at users who are already using previous versions of Symantec Endpoint Protection, particularly 12.1. It's designed to give you an overview of what's new in Symantec 14 and what the benefits are of upgrading. Of course, if you're not yet a Symantec Endpoint Protection user, you can also find some good information about the benefits of our latest version of this solution. We've broken out this what's new information into four main categories. First, superior protection from upgrading to SEP 14, higher performance, orchestrated response, and then finally what the upgrade experience looks like. So let's get started by looking into the superior protection offered in SEP 14. Symantec Endpoint Protection has always been built around the idea of layered security. No single technology can offer full protection for the type of advanced threats and diverse threats that we see in the current threat landscape. So because of this, we use this unique combination of protection technologies to provide the best protection, but since these are all integrated into a single client, we also preserve the performance on the endpoints. So you'll notice we still have the protection technologies that you've become familiar with in SEP version 12.1, but we've added some new next-gen protection technologies on top of these that give us even more protection against some of these advanced types of threats. Starting on the left there, we have memory exploit mitigation that allows us to block the exploit of memory vulnerabilities that are found in many popular applications. Then we have advanced machine learning. This is a pre-execution type of detection technology, so it's one that takes effect before an executable launches. And it gives us better protection against unknown types of threats and threats from evolving threat families. Next is emulator, which allows us to get around evasion techniques used by custom packed malware. And then lastly, up at the top there, we have our intelligent threat cloud. This gives us access to the most up-to-date threat information and also helps us to reduce the footprint on the endpoints. So when we look at the combination of these next-gen protection technologies along with what we already provided in SEP 12.1, we can see that it gives us the most comprehensive protection stack on the market currently. And it really makes SEP 14 the biggest launch of Symantec Endpoint Protection in years. So let's take a minute to dive a little bit deeper into some of these new advanced technologies so that we can understand the protection we're getting from those better. First of all, let's take a look at our advanced machine learning protection technology. Using machine learning for protection on endpoints is something that's been a pretty popular topic of discussion in recent years around security vendors. So this is likely already something you've encountered. It's a technology that we decided to add into SEP 14, and it complements really well what we already have with both our reputation and behavior analysis technologies. Advanced machine learning is most useful for detecting unknown types of threats or threats that have evolved from other existing threat families. This is really important because in the current threat landscape, we see millions and millions of new variants emerging all the time. So being able to compare a new unknown sample to what we already know about existing malware and then have the engine be able to tell based on the characteristics shared for sure whether that is a bad file, even though it's something we've never seen before, is a really powerful technology. And because it's pre-execution, again, this is something where we can block and stop a threat before it even has the chance to execute on the system. At its core, the quality of any machine learning technology is really about how much data and how much quality data you can feed through your algorithm. So in other words, the more samples of known malware you can feed through the algorithm, as well as the more samples of known good software that you can feed through, the better the algorithm gets at determining what these two things, the attributes that they share in common, as well as what they have apart. And it gets better and better at not only detecting what is malware, but also at not detecting on false positives, things that are actually good. And this is really a key differentiator when it comes to all of Symantec's protection technologies, not just machine learning, is our global intelligence network. Symantec actually operates the largest civilian threat intelligence network in the world. You can see the statistics on the screen here are pretty mind-boggling when you think about the amount of data we can collect and have access to. And this is really key, as was mentioned, for the machine learning technology because we constantly need the most up-to-date information, the most up-to-date data and samples so that we can continue to, on the back end, train our machine learning algorithms and give you the best protection that you can have there on your endpoints. But this also is a benefit to many of our different protection technologies in SEP and in our other solutions. Things like our reputation database, allowing you to leverage that wisdom from the cloud as well as our intelligent threat cloud service, which allows you to have detections from these very new samples that we get in this database. So really, there's no other competitor that can hold a candle to the amount of threat data and threat research that we have, and that's really a key benefit when you're looking at Symantec Endpoint Protection and choosing that as your solution to protect your endpoints. Next, let's take a look at memory exploit mitigation. This protection technology adds protection against exploits that try and take advantage of how memory is utilized either by the operating system or by common applications. Once a threat can take advantage of one of these methods, it then can elevate its privileges to get around things and other types of protections that would have prevented the threat. So by stopping and preventing them from being able to do this, we can actually stop a lot of these threats just dead in their tracks and deny them the ability they need to get that foothold into the system. Specifically, in the release build of SEP 14, we've added Java exploit protection, mitigation for heap spray attacks, as well as CHOP, or structured exception handler override protection. And these are the things, again, that we've added in the initial build, but this is an extensible technology. So as we watch the threat landscape evolve and we see that other memory exploit type of attacks are becoming more common, we can expand this protection in future builds to increase the amount of protection that you have against these new or evolving methods. Another key advantage of memory exploit mitigation is that this is a signatureless technology. And because we're focused on stopping and blocking access to the method of attack, it gives us true zero-day protection. We don't have to know anything about the threat or the virus that's trying to take advantage of this. It doesn't matter if we've ever seen a submission or a sample of it or know anything about it. We're just blocking access to the method of these exploits, and so it's going to work for any type of threat that's trying to leverage that. Next, let's take a look at the emulator technology. This is one that we've added to address a very specific type of malware that we've seen increase in popularity over time, and that's custom packed malware. It's sometimes referred to as polymorphic packers or cryptographic packers. But the idea basically is that we have one piece of software that's wrapped inside another. So we have an executable on the outside, and that executable is fine. It's the pretty package on the outside. It doesn't really do anything. And then on the inside, we have the actual malicious payload inside of another executable. But because that's packed in this custom fashion, a lot of times encrypted, we can't really look into it and see the internals. And of course, that presents a problem from a scanning perspective that we can't see it from the outside, so we have to wait till it's unpacked and running before we can detect it. So this is where the emulator technology comes in. This allows when a packer is executed, it allows it to think that it's running directly on the system, but really the SEP client's intercepting these calls to the system, and we're answering back. So we're proxying that information so that the packer thinks that it's running directly. So it's going to execute to the point where that outside executable unpacks the malicious payload. And as soon as it does that, the SEP client can scan and take action on that threat, so deleting or quarantining or whatever we need to do. And because again that's software is not running directly on the system, we don't have to worry about any locked resources or pulling it out of a running state. We can immediately handle it. Another benefit of the emulator technology is that it's very lightweight. We aren't actually running an entire virtual machine or anything on each of the clients. We're just emulating this execution and making these packers think that they're executing directly on the system. So It's only going to come into play when we're dealing with a packer, and even then, we're only adding just milliseconds onto the launch time of any scan of a packed file. So again, it's a very low resource utilization, lightweight technology, but we're getting a lot of additional protection because of it. Another upgrade in SEP 14 that was not on the initial protection stack slide that we looked at earlier, but is worth noting, is that we've extended the device control protection onto Mac clients, whereas previously it was just for Windows clients. So now you can use the same technology to control, read, write, execute access to external devices attached to your Mac clients, as you could previously with your Windows clients. So now that we've examined overall how SEP 14 has increased security, let's also take a look at how it's improved performance over SEP 12.1. A new feature in SEP 14 that's really allowed us to increase the performance of the endpoint protection clients is the Intelligent Threat Cloud capability. This technology is really great because it not only increases the performance of the endpoint protection clients, but it also increases the amount of security and the scanning effectiveness. A good way to understand this technology is kind of by thinking of it as virus definitions in the cloud. Essentially, in SEP 14, the clients receive a reduced size definition set that they use to scan locally, but then they augment this with lookups to the cloud. So we have our local scanning technologies that are still all functional there directly on the client, but we can also make these small hash lookups to the cloud when we encounter suspicious files and get confirmation of the latest information and detections directly from Symantec's global intelligence network. So from a performance perspective, we think about this means that we're downloading smaller definition size sets. So overall, we're seeing a 70% reduction in the amount of network bandwidth usage for distributing these definitions to clients. But also we're seeing a reduced client size set because we don't have to hold so many definitions directly on the disk. We don't have to process them in memory. So overall, we get a lighter weight client that runs faster. Then on the protection side of things, because all of these clients can query directly, they can send these hash queries up to the Symantec's global intelligence network, we get up to the second protection about any new threats that Symantec is aware of and has written definitions, even though we haven't actually pulled down a definition update that contains that. So that increases the protection on our endpoints, and again, increases the performance at the same time. So really a great technology in SEP 14. Another way that SEP 14 is helping with performance on the endpoints is by reducing the complexity on the endpoints. As was mentioned earlier, all of the capabilities that we're talking about are all integrated directly into SEP, and this is just a single agent install that goes down to all of the endpoints. We talked about a lot of new neat technologies, next-gen endpoint. We talked about exploit prevention. We're going to talk about the EDR capabilities, but these are all things that are built directly into a single client. Whereas we see a lot of other vendors in the space who are trying to add these capabilities, but sometimes are requiring 3 or more agents to get the same effectiveness that we have with a single SEP agent install. So by having that single agent capability, we're really reducing the total cost of ownership for the solution, but also reducing the complexity at the endpoint, which of course then improves performance and it requires less time for the IT teams to have to spend time integrating and figuring out how these different agents are going to work together, how they need to be all maintained and updated. So it really is a great benefit for having all of this in a single client architecture. Next, let's take a look at how SEP 14 increases your ability to orchestrate response to threats within your environment. A complete endpoint protection solution not only needs to give you best-in-class detection, but it also needs to give you a way to harden or inoculate your systems against attack, as well as to be able to respond to threats in the case that infection does occur, so that you can really minimize the amount of damage done to your organization. This is why Symantec Endpoint Protection includes features like host integrity and system lockdown, so you can quarantine machines that are infected or at risk, as well as implement whitelisting and blacklisting to inoculate system against threats. Also, in later builds of SEP 12.1, we added the capability to integrate with our advanced threat protection endpoint solution. This, again, using just a single agent of SEP, extends the functionality to allow us to have true endpoint detection and response capabilities so that we can respond anytime that there's a threat within the organization. We can, with one click, actively blacklist files or quarantine endpoints so that we can really contain threats inside of the environment. In SEP 14, we've extended this capability even further by opening up REST APIs within the Endpoint Protection Manager console. This allows us to orchestrate SEP Manager functionality with other applications and scripts. A great example of this type of orchestration is shown between the Symantec Endpoint Protection Manager 14 and the Symantec Secure Web Gateway. Using these REST APIs, the Secure Web Gateway not only has the ability to query the Endpoint Protection Manager for information on infections or infected endpoints, but it can also orchestrate a response so that it can blacklist applications or quarantine infected endpoints to keep the spread of that threat throughout the environment. So really a great way that you can extend this EDR capability with other security tools that you may already be using in your environment. Now that we've taken a look at all the great benefits that you can get from upgrading to SEP 14, you might be wondering what exactly that upgrade experience looks like. The great news here is that the upgrade from SEP 12.1 to 14 is designed to be very easy for users who are already using Symantec Endpoint Protection 12.1. Essentially, if you've done an upgrade from a previous version of 12.1 to the most recent build, you're going to feel right at home when you start the upgrade process. The simple steps are just to review the upgrade documentation and create an upgrade plan. Then you're going to back up the Endpoint Protection Manager database and recovery files. There are tools built right into Endpoint Protection Manager to do that. Then you're going to simply download and run the installer to upgrade the Endpoint Protection Manager. And that installer takes care of everything as well as updating the database and adding the client packages into the manager. And then once you're finished there, you can go ahead and roll out that update to the SEP clients. The easiest way, of course, to do that is through the auto upgrade feature. So if you're familiar with that from previous upgrades, you can continue to use that for 14. Or, of course, you can always deploy a complete client installation package and send that out through whatever software deployment method that you're already using. Also, the Symantec Endpoint Protection Manager 14 is backwards compatible with SEP 12 clients. So if you upgrade your manager first and then you need to do a staged rollout to upgrade your clients, there's no issue there. Those SEP 12 clients can continue to be managed and get updates from that existing upgraded SEP 14 manager as long as you need to until you can get those updates pushed out to the entire environment. Also, once you've upgraded the Endpoint Protection Manager, you're going to find that the console for SEP 14 is, again, it's designed with SEP 12.1 users in mind. There aren't a whole lot of changes as far as workflow is concerned. So if you're already comfortable and familiar with managing Endpoint Protection 12.1, again, you're going to feel right at home when you start to use the SEP 14 console. We've updated the user interface to look a little more clean and modern, but otherwise the workflow you're going to be very familiar with. And you're going to be able to get right in there and do what you need to with the console. So that concludes this overview video of what's new in Symantec Endpoint Protection 14. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope it proved valuable and gave you the information you need to evaluate your upgrade to 14. There's plenty of more information and documentation on the Symantec.com website, so I invite you to go there. And also feel free to contact your Symantec partner or sales rep, as well as our support teams if you need any more information or help with the upgrade process. Thanks for your time.